Apologies. Okay, so today's agenda is we are going to be talking about assignment cells and essentially the death of assignment cells. And I'll explain what I mean by that as well. Assignment cells have always been a good opportunity. When I started in the business, I think the first purchase I ever bought was an assignment cell. I bought it from a gentleman who was on Queen Street. He bought it for $199. He sold it to me for $220,000. And I didn't really understand what was going on at the time. But then later on, I kind of understood, okay, I had some questions. Is it legal? Can we do this kind of stuff? Why is he buying something and then he's not honoring his contract? So I'll explain a little bit about what assignment cells is, and then I'll explain a little bit about what the opportunity is within assignment cells as well. But before we dive into assignment cells, we'll just kind of do a quick recap of just some major things that have been in the news. We're not going to go through everything, just a couple of things that I felt it's important to discuss because it affects us. It affects us directly in our business and what we do with clients. So I'm sure everybody saw this. Two people impersonated the owner of a home, and they hired a real estate agent. They sold the house. The buyers moved and took possession of the house, and then the original owners of the house. So this has nothing to do with assignment cells, by the way. This is just something that's in the news. So two people defrauded some owners while the owners were on vacation. They came back, their house was sold, people were living there, and they were confused as to what happened. So I've never seen a scenario like this, but I could understand that definitely some, fiduciary duties were missed by multiple parties, including the listing real estate agent. So probably, FINTRAC, FINTRAC, even if it was done, it probably wasn't done thoroughly. So I wanted to start out by discussing this, because this is a very important thing, and it's going to have major litigation, probably against that real estate agent and also against potentially that real estate lawyer for the sellers as well. Anybody have any comments, questions about this? Like, this is a very big deal, actually. So this is not a training aspect. This is just discussions. What should the real estate agent, listing real estate agent, what should they have done to avoid this? And this is an opportunity for me also to learn. So I'm not saying I have the answers. So maybe some of you guys that have experience.
I wanted to say something, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. The lawyers are probably in on it because they would have to do a title search.
That's right. There's a title search that was missed to some degree, right? So somebody was definitely in on it to assist them with it. This is not an easy thing to pull off, because how do you know the length of time that the sellers are away for you to pull this thing off with showings? And also, it's not like this sale happened in a busy, hot seller's market. Now they also didn't list the address or what the house was priced for, but I'm sure it was priced very aggressive, so it can be a quick sale. But I mean, most buyers today, they're buying with conditions, and those conditions typically last a few days, right? Those conditions typically, finance is typically minimum 5 business days, home inspection is 3 to 5 days as well, and any other due diligence that needs to be performed. So, it's if this had happened in maybe 8 months ago, I could see how it's possible, because everybody's just acting so quickly. Buyers are just like frantic, and everybody has FOMO. But for this to happen in the time that it did, definitely suggests that somebody was in on it as well.
Yeah,
Bernice, you agree?
absolutely. Yeah. And what about the mortgage broker if there was a mortgage?
There's obviously an investigation going on, and we'll probably get an update on it. These suspects are still at large, by the way. It's not like they've been apprehended, so they're probably somewhere in Mexico living their best life with probably $1 million in cash that they ran away with. So,
well, Mike, you know what? It's impressive from a real estate standpoint in this market to do what they've done.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to be able to pull it off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So in terms of best practices, obviously always complete the FinTrack, always get the IDs of the parties and cross-reference it with Geo Warehouse. I think those three things from a listing agent perspective will allow you to see who's impersonating who. And this happens quite frequently with leases as well. So with leases, I've seen homes posted up for lease, and then the party who's defrauding everybody, what they'll do is they'll take first and last month from like 10 people, and then 10 people show up on the day of closing to occupy, and the owners are confused because they've never interacted or they don't know who any of these people are. So I've seen this happen frequently, not frequently, but enough times with leases as well. So with leases, you also need to be careful. You also need to be making sure that you're doing, especially, you guys don't have a relationship or referral with the individuals that you're doing business with. You have to definitely go into Geo Warehouse. And if you have questions, confirm, discuss with, the broker of record, just to make sure that, you guys are covering your ends, because lawsuits will be coming. Now, the good news about this is title insurance covers the original homeowner, so they will be getting their home back at some point, but it's going to be messy before that is done. So they'll probably be putting up at a hotel. Title insurance will cover that cost until they sort this thing out and the buyers actually get themselves sorted out as well. Anybody want to comment or anything you want to add to this?
I'm just wondering if the impersonators actually use the homeowners' names on their fake documents, on their fake IDs.
That's a good question.
Make the process a little smoother.
It's a good question. I don't know all the details. Very little has been disclosed from the because again, it's an ongoing investigation. So, but we can revisit this maybe towards the end of the year once we get all the details and so forth. All right, what a way to start 2023. You come home and your house is sold and you weren't involved.
Mike, I was just going to comment and say, this is why it's important to know your neighbors. So that
too, yeah. Yeah, that is a very good point as well. And especially if there's a for sale sign on the lawn, most nosy neighbors are going to start to come and interact and ask questions. What's going on? Why are you moving? Where are you moving to? And so forth, right? So it would have been a red flag. And the neighbors would have known that, hey, these guys have been away in Portugal or whatever for the last 2 months. How are they conducting a sale?
Could it be that they did not even advertise it, or they already have a buyer available?
It's possible too. They already had a buyer available. They didn't put signs, because depending on the neighborhood, a lot of neighborhoods don't like lawn signs on their lawn to advertise that their houses are for sale or for lease. Because again, once your house is for sale or for lease and you have an open house, all your neighbors are going to come, walk to your house, be nosy and so forth. So a lot of neighborhoods, they don't like having for sale signs listed on their property. So, there's a lot of questions, and I'm glad everybody's kind of thinking as well to see, okay, like, how did this happen? For a lot of us that we know the type of process and paperwork and how many parties are involved and how many checks are done, like, where are the pictures of the homeowners? Do they take all of those down and so forth? So
does that mean, do you think that Geo Warehouse may have to have photos of every homeowner?
No, I don't. Well, I think even if we do go that direction, it will be an opt-in process. So automatically you'll be opted out, and then you'll probably have to opt in. I know in the US and certain states, what they do is, because Geo Warehouse is very, like, you can find anything about everybody at Geo Warehouse. If you really want to be nosy enough. So I know in the US, you could actually remove your name from being listed on tools like Geo Warehouse.
Yeah.
You really want to be nosy about anybody that you don't like, you can pull up all their information on Geo Warehouse and how many properties do they own, what's under whose name and so forth. So, but yeah, but this will shape some kind of policy in the future for sure.
A quick question, Mike. Is Geo Warehouse available and open to the public, or is it just certain
Lawyers,
questions?
real estate agents, and then anybody else who opts to pay for the service that are, maybe like project managers can have access to it as well.
Lawyers, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another interesting, are we okay with this part? I know it's still, if you're just hearing this for the first time, your mind is probably racing with questions, but I think we covered some of the major things that you should be aware of when navigating in this kind of space. Okay, now the second article, did anybody read or come across this? Homeowners at Paradise Development in Brampton, or purchasers rather, I should say, not homeowners. Obviously, this is has to do with pre-construction. They bought pre-construction homes for around, let's say, $2 million, I believe, were the prices. Maybe since this is freehold, probably 3 years ago, because it probably takes about 3 years to construct. So what these guys did is they bought homes for $2 million. They put, I'm guessing, at least $200,000 down as deposits. They estimated what their payments would be 2-3 years ago. Obviously, rates were, money was free 2 years ago. So 1%, 0.75%, so money was essentially free. Rates were very low, and everybody qualified to purchase a lot more house than maybe they can afford now. So there's a lot of homeowners in this development that are now, their registration and their occupancy is coming up, and they're looking at what the numbers are. And the numbers went from $6,000 to $7,000 a month in mortgage payments to now about $13,000 to $15,000 a month. So that type of shock is going to cause a problem for a lot of purchasers. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is, even if you do qualify and you can afford to make $13,000, $15,000 a month mortgage payments, the appraisals have now come back, and the appraisals are way below what the purchase prices were. So the appraisals are now coming in at 1.7 million versus 2 million, which is the purchase price. And the bank is telling the homeowners, well, we're only going to advance you 1.7 million minus whatever you've already put down as a deposit. So essentially, the mortgage you're going to get is 1.5 million plus your $200,000 deposit, bringing you to 1.7, which means there's a shortfall of about $300,000. Now, what happens in a shortfall of $300,000? For some of you experienced or that have seen these cycles before. So you bought a home for $2 million. The appraisal came in at 1.7 million. What happens to the 300,000?
Don't you have to fund that from your pocket? I'm just assuming. I haven't been a part of it.
Fund it out of your pocket. That's one solution. What's another solution? What's another solution? Maybe you find a private lender, a B lender, that is willing to take a second position, and maybe that lender is not as informed, and they're comfortable taking the risk, and they'll advance you a second mortgage for the 300,000. That's a second option. So what options do these home purchasers have? What's a third option? So Salome mentioned, number one, they have to come out of pocket, 300,000. How many people have $300,000 just lying around? So is that a realistic solution? Is that the best solution? What other solutions are available?
Can you bring in another partner?
Okay, so Salome, they approach you to say, hey, we bought this pre-construction at 2 million. The bank says it's worth 1.7. Do you want to come in as a partner and bring $300,000? Would you be open to that as a partner? And I'm not saying yes or no. I think it will determine how you really have to really sell that really well. You might say to someone, hey, you know what? Bring 300,000, make no payments because maybe they just need to close. And you get your money is protected from the 200,000. Like you're gonna have to structure that in a very creative way. So it's not likely, and most likely as well, will probably take at least 5 years for the market to come back to that $2 million mark. So it's not a bad solution. You can bring in a partner. I think a partner would make sense if they bought it for 1.7 million and they couldn't get a mortgage, and the value today is 2 million, because now there's an incentive for the partner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to say something as well.
Go ahead.
I think in the most likely scenario is they're gonna have to sell the property. They're not gonna be able to close on it.
Sell it to who?
It's gonna be on the market.
I know, but this is pre-construction, right? So they need to get the mortgage to close on it. So
They
before
won't be able to. They'll sell it on assignment.
they can sell it on assignment. Okay, that's a very good proposal. Now, can they sell it on assignment? Typically, assignments are profit motivated, right? So Chris, would you bring your client to buy this from them on assignment?
Well, it'd be good to take advantage of a situation, but at the same time, the market's down. So if you could get it for a good price, if they had, if it fit their portfolio, then there's an opportunity from a buyer standpoint, sure.
I think what I would do in the assignment scenario is I would probably say, okay, I'll buy it on assignment. I'm bringing no money forward. I'm keeping your deposit of $200,000 because I need to protect my money that I'm bringing in. Because obviously you guys can't get a mortgage. And if you guys don't get the mortgage, you guys will be in default. If you guys are in default, the builder is going to sue you for the $1.7 million balance that you owe them, and the builder will keep your $200,000 as well. So if I take it over at assignment, I'll take it over at your purchase price, but I'm not bringing any money forward. I'll help you with the carrying cost, but my money will be first to come out. Even that deal I still wouldn't do. And it's a very unfortunate situation, but for a scenario like this, I would say there is no room for assignments because assignments are typically profit driven. And in this scenario, there's too many. I mean, I don't want to be on the hook for the builder for 2 million, but the bank is only advancing me 1.7 million, especially in a market where there's a million options in terms of homes that I can buy for 1.5 to $2 million. Right, so the assignment option is possible if the numbers made a little more sense. In this scenario, I would say probably is not possible. So I think what they'll end up doing is either they'll extend the closing, which is another option. They'll say, hey, Builder Paradise, can we move this closing date till maybe end of August? Hopefully by then the markets have picked up, rates have settled. Because right now it just, no lender is going to advance us this money. I think their best option is to extend the closing period to give them a little bit more time. Maybe it'll give them more time to, as Salome said, raise the 300,000. Other than that, I really don't see how these guys could come out of this on top. And most or a lot of people will actually probably just end up walking away from their deposit, which happened in 2017 with Mattamy. In Oakville, around Dundas and Trafalgar, a whole bunch of people walked away from $200,000 plus of deposits because the appraisals came down because the market turned in late 2017, early 2018. So this is very, very similar to that period of time.
What if they went back to the builder? Do you think the builder would adjust the price to accommodate them? That's actually
a very good option and a very good proposal.
Because he wants his property sold as well.
100%. He wants his property sold as well. Now we don't know how the builder's financing is structured. If it's private equity, if it's institutional money, also what happened over the last 3 years with construction, right? All the costs doubled and tripled, right? True. So labor, 60,000 trade workers went on strike last year to get more money, right? Every site is unionized workers, so they get paid really well. The labor gets paid really well. And then materials, I mean, we all saw the jokes and heard the jokes about the cost of lumber, right? is it likely that that builder has enough margins and spread? Because remember, the builder's on the hook to another lender. The lenders that are advancing the money or her the money to be able to complete this project. So if the builder has their obligations that they also need to fulfill. So cutting down prices by $300,000 times, let's say 200 doors, you know, giving away, you know, whatever that number is, that's probably close to $60 million.
Mm.
That's not a small amount of money to just make an adjustment on. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. I don't, you know, we don't have all the details at the moment, and I'm sure more details will be unveiled as we go forward.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody want to add anything to this? Anybody here purchased or has purchasers in Paradise Development? Okay, that's good. That's good. All right, so this helps us navigate now into our topic today, which is the death of assignment sales. And based on these two articles, and especially this one I just went through, you can kind of understand what the challenge of assignment sales would be, given construction costs, given labor costs, given taxes are going up, given the high cost of development charges, parks and levies, all the things that, you know, that we kind of see. So those of you that are fairly new, let's explain what an assignment sale is. So an assignment sale is a transaction where the original buyer of a property, also known as the assigner, allows for another purchaser or buyer, the assignee, to take over the buyer's rights and obligations to the agreement of purchase and sale before the original buyer closes on the property. So if it closes and they sell, that is resale. Before it closes, that period is where it's known and referred to as an assignment sale. Now, the assignee, who's the buyer, is the one who ultimately completes the deal with the seller. Does everybody understand this? To kind of keep it in simple terms, let's say Jordan went and bought a pre-construction from Paradise Development 3 years ago, and he purchased it for $1 million. And then 3 years later, the property is worth $2 million. Jordan's super excited because he didn't do anything. He just put $200,000 down in the form of a deposit. He waited 3 years. He had no risk, no real exposure to himself because he didn't have to build a house. He didn't have to get financing for the house. You know, he didn't have to battle the city and the neighbors to get the structure up. But Jordan is up $1 million. Jordan will be pretty excited. So what Jordan decides is, hey, you know what? I don't want to get a mortgage on this because if I get a mortgage on this, I probably have to, because 200,000 on 2 million is only 10%. But then Jordan figures out, you know, because he's a smart investor, for me to get a mortgage on this, I have to bring another $200,000 to make it $400,000 total, making it 20% down payment. And Jordan knows he has to pay land transfer tax, which will probably be around $40,000. Jordan also knows he has to pay development charges, which will probably run him another at least $30,000. And then if Jordan decides to rent it out because it's not his primary residence, Jordan most likely will have to pay HST of another $24,000+. So Jordan starts doing the math and he says, the cost to close all of this doesn't make any sense. I'd rather just take my $1 million in profit and walk away and pay, you know, the realtor fees and, you know, take my profit and to run away. So that's what an assignment sale is. So Jordan bought it from the developer. He flipped it to a buyer, the assignee, and now the assignee is the one who's going to get a mortgage and close on it. And on closing, Jordan receives his $1 million in cash minus costs, and he walks away as the greatest investor of all time because he put $200,000 down and he made $1 million in 3 years, right? So that has been the story of assignment sales for over 15 years. So for over 15 years, there's been massive, massive profit margins in assignments, and those profit margins have motivated a lot of people to get into the business model of buying pre-construction, having no intention of getting a mortgage on it, and then flipping it for an assignment to try to make a profit. Now, most of the time, Not most of the time. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time in the past, it's typically worked because the margins and the profit were just so large. So if Jordan runs into a period where interest rates are really low, Jordan could say, you know what, I don't need to be greedy. I don't need $2 million. I'm okay walking away with 1.5 million. That has been the story in the past. Hold on, guys. Give me one quick second. Okay, Daddy's working. Kai, close the door. Kai, close the door. Out, Ziggy, out. Sorry, guys. Okay, so back to this. So why would a seller assign? Now, some of the answers are already there, so you guys can cheat. So profit motive. Obviously, if there's big profits, people will be motivated to assign. Change in your life, maybe you work in the tech industry right now. Tech is experiencing, massive layoffs, and you lost your job, and you bought this thing 3 years ago, and now, things are changing your life, and you're saying to yourself, okay, you know what, it doesn't make sense anymore. I won't be able to do this because this change in my life, and I need to move forward. This change in my life, and I need to move forward. I need to get out of this contract. Another reason people will assign, which has been the majority of people over the last 3 years, they've been over speculating. So over speculation has been one of the main reasons now in assignments. There's a building that is Paul here? Yes, Paul is here. So there's a building that Paul and I structured an assignment together. That building had over 80% investors. Aaron Mills Parkway and Eglinton in Mississauga. Now, most high rises in the city are similar in terms of numbers. Most high rises that you see being built up are full of investors or speculators, and they're in it to try to make a profit, trying to flip contracts for high amounts, and they're hoping that whatever price that they purchase these at are going to be a lot more by the time completion happens. What other reasons would a seller want to assign? I know those three are major ones, but what other reasons would a seller have to want to assign? Anybody else? No?
Maybe life happened.
Yeah, life happened, right? Maybe their families have expanded. They bought a 2-bedroom, then they found out that they're having triplets, and now there's no way you can raise, well, not no way, but it's going to be a lot more challenging. They probably need more space. In-laws are moving in. Life happens. So different things could happen in different stages. So people, even if you're not a speculator or you're not an investor, I always recommend, if you buy pre-construction or you have clients buying pre-construction, to always 100% of the time put an assignment clause in your contract. Always put an assignment clause in your contract. There's always going to be conditions as to when you can actually assign, when the builder will let you to assign, but you definitely want to, at minimum, have it in your contract. Now, why would a buyer buy an assignment? I'll show you guys the answers. Why would you guys as real estate agents go to somebody and say to them, hey, let's buy an assignment instead of going to buy resale?
Mortgage qualification.
Pardon?
Mortgage qualification.
What about mortgage qualification?
Maybe they can't qualify in the traditional route.
Okay, so they think if they buy an assignment, they will qualify in a different route?
Possibly.
Okay. If you buy an assignment, Well, one thing that
Well-
mortgage qualification is a very common thing, and an assignment, what it will do for you is it will give you time. Because if you buy an assignment contract, you usually don't have to get the mortgage right away. If you're buying condo assignments, usually the mortgage is around 6 months plus before you have to get a mortgage. So it is possible that because of mortgage qualification, if the time is extended, you have time to maybe strengthen or search for your options to buy and then to be able to get a mortgage on it. Yeah, that's one option. Why would you guys put your clients to buy an assignment or advise them to buy an assignment sale in 2023? Anybody else? I mean, what does everybody always ask for? What do buyers always ask for? If they want to buy something, they always tell you, Asha, I want to buy this, but I want to make sure it's a good
Price.
price. Usually when you buy an assignment, it is a good price. Why? Because the person bought it 3 years ago, and the markets typically, from when they purchase it to when it's completed, the markets have gone up. So in the example I used earlier with Jordan, once Jordan, starts doing the numbers and what it's going to cost them to close, and he might opt to say, well, for me to get a mortgage on this, I have to bring another $300,000. I only put down $200,000, and now I have to bring another $300 to get a mortgage. This doesn't make sense. I'd rather just sell this, make a little profit, and to walk away. So maybe if the market in the area is 2 million, Jordan bought it for 1 million. Obviously, I'm using very large extremes. Jordan bought it for 1 million, the market is 2 million. Jordan might say, I'm okay selling it for 1.5, I'll make a profit, and the new buyer will get a deal. The price is right, and the new buyer will be motivated as well, because I'm going to make a profit and they're going to make some money as well. Right now, other reasons. Motivation. An assignment sale is a sale driven by motivation. When you see an assignment sale, just think motivation, motivation, motivation. Because the cost of an assignment sale is very large. It's not usual. It's not the same as a resale. And I'll go through some of the things at the end that you want to make sure that you're thinking about when you're putting buyers to buy assignment sales, or if you're representing sellers to buy assignment sales. There's some things that you definitely want to be thinking about, and I'll discuss what those are. The main attraction another main attraction for wanting to buy an assignment sale is typically there's not a lot of buyers looking at assignment sales. So if you think about the market about 8 months ago, you had buyers and you were trying to get into the market, and everything had bidding wars, everything was overpriced, everything had no conditions. It's a very frustrating period when you're representing a lot of buyers in a seller's market and you don't even have the chance to even put your best foot forward. So that's how a lot of buyers get frustrated. That's how a lot of buyers leave the market, or they end up just maybe renting. So the reason they'll look at an assignment sale is because they want to avoid competition. Not a lot of realtors are versed and trained on how to perform assignment sales. So it's a good avenue to look at, because typically you have less competition and less buyers looking at it. And another benefit of wanting to buy an assignment sale is you're getting a new home. You're getting a brand new home, but you don't have to wait the 2 to 4 years for completion. You're gonna get a brand new home and you're gonna have to wait 6 months. You're gonna have to wait 12 months before it's completely done and it's fully registered. So there's an advantage there because you still get all the benefits of owning a new home. So you still get all the warranties. So you get the electrical, the mechanical, the plumbing, the structural warranties. And then you also get the benefit of the customization of it. And also you don't have to worry about all the stuff you have to worry about with a resale home, the age of the roof, the age of the mechanicals, how sound is the build and so forth. Any other reasons why it'll be good to consider assignment sales? I mean, those are the ones that, from my experience, those are the ones from my experience have been the main drivers as to why people like to get into the business of assignments. So
Mike, I was thinking maybe for location, did you say that? If it's a desired location that they want to live in?
100%, especially if the location has very low inventory, or if it's a location that not a lot of houses come to the market. And you know, the people that own those products, they never sell. Now you have a chance to go into the location, into the community, you know, with a new product, and you can enjoy the benefits and the amenities of that location. Yeah, definitely, location will you know, could be a motivating factor. Anybody else? Okay, let's keep it moving. So I have a few case studies here. I have about 4. We're gonna go through each one. And the main thing that I want you guys, as we go through it, is to think, number one, is there a profit to be made? Because that's what the seller of an assignment is thinking. Number 2, is this person motivated? So let's look at the first one. So this is a distressed sell, and they're not asking for any profit. They're asking for just their original price. So they bought it for $547,000. This is 35 Tubman Avenue, and they're selling it 2-3 years later. I don't know what it is, for $547,000. Occupancy is next week. What's due to the builder on occupancy is $4,400. And that is probably the assignment fee. And they're willing to pay 2.5% commission if you bring a buyer. The description is a 1-bed, 1-bath, no parking, no locker, with a balcony. Now, no floor plan is attached, but actually, sorry, floor plan, it was attached, but I just couldn't get this full screenshot on it there. But regardless of the floor plan, is there a profit to be made? Answer is obviously no. Not only is there no profit to be made, but they're paying 2.5% on the commission, which means that they're gonna eat at their deposit because the seller's gonna pay for the commission. And I'm sure Sarah Temple is not doing this for free. She's getting paid a commission as well. So you're at, let's average 4%. So 4% is gonna come off of this price, 4% of 547,000. Let's just call it $25,000. So $25,000 is gonna come out of the seller's pocket. So the seller right now is proposing that they're willing to lose $25,000 to make this assignment work. Are they motivated? Of course.
Definitely.
Very, yep.
Very motivated. Now, this is on Facebook. It's called Canadian Assignments Group. It's got almost 7,000 realtors on it. And then there's another one that I use that I'm playing with as well. So this is where I typically post my assignment sales when I do have assignment sales, and you know, and have discussions with realtors, you know, to kind of see if there's something to make that we can make work. So that's case number 1. Case number 2. So this is Artworks Tower. Is this the same building? No. Artsy Boutique? No, it's not the same building. So Artwork Tower, they didn't put they didn't put an address, but so they bought this for $394,000. I'm guessing maybe 4 years ago. They're assigning it for $529,000. The deposits that they've made to date, remaining deposit, no. Oh, so they only had to put 10% down. That's amazing. So they put a total of 10% down, because this is a Daniels program. So Daniels has very great terms for first-time home buyers. It's just very, very challenging to get into it. So they bought it for $394,000. They only made a deposit of $34,000, and there's no deposits due. It's 447 square feet. It's a north exposure. It's on the 9th floor, and occupancy is in 2.5 months. Is there profit here to be made? 100%, right? Almost at least $150,000, or a little bit, $130,000. profit to be made. So they can pay commissions. You can probably negotiate with someone like this. In a scenario like this is the type of assignors. These are the type of sellers I would like to represent in a market like this. Assigners with a lot of profit margin that we could potentially list this below market price. You know, this is about $1,200 per square foot, which is a little rich. So also it tells me that they're not very motivated. You know, because your occupancy is in 2 months and you're still asking for you know, premium pricing. So if I do 529,000 divided by 447 square feet, you know, they're asking for almost $1,200 per square foot for an assignment sale in a down market. So this person is clearly, when I see this, I say, and I'm representing a buyer, I'll tell my buyers, look, this person is not that motivated. They have a lot of profit, and there's a good chance they can probably get a mortgage on this. 394,000. You know, where are you going to get 394,000? This is downtown in the Regent Park area where the revitalization of Regent Park is happening. So this person, if they don't sell it by March, most likely they'll move in, they'll rent it out. Rentals are $2,100 a month. Even at 394,000, you know, it's a joke compared to what you would do or what you'll have to spend if you're buying resale. Any strategies if you were representing a buyer? How would you talk to Lisa to get Lisa to maybe come down 50,000? Because I don't want to spend $1,200 per square foot, even for an assignment, even if it's brand new. So what kind of discussions would you have with Lisa? I'm going to pick on people now. Benson.
Um, uh, I don't see any conversations other than to like, I mean, look for reasons as to why they should take that amount and just walk away with the money they're gonna make from it. Because I mean, like you said, they don't have to sell. With this mortgage amount and all, it's gonna be. I mean, I don't think I have any trick up my sleeve.
Well, you know what? It's a very tough thing, and I'm not Lisa, so we would have to have a conversation with Lisa to really know what Lisa's thinking and try to get an idea what her client is thinking. So we can so all we're really doing is speculating. There's no real or there's no good answers or real answers. So, but thanks for attempting. What about you, Paul? What is there anything you would say to Lisa to maybe come down a little bit in price? Paul, are you there? Okay, let's skip Paul. Here's what I would do. I would ask Lisa. I would say, Lisa, when was the last time you had an appraisal done? And Lisa would say, whatever. And I say, okay, Lisa, my client is very interested in this property. I like the property. I like the area. I like brand new. I see that, you know, you have big profits. You can probably negotiate a little bit. Maybe you guys don't want to negotiate a lot. Your seller probably not motivated. But have you done an appraisal? Because I don't think the appraisal is going to come in at $1,200 a square foot. So I would so if I need to, if Lisa's open to it, maybe I'll hire an appraiser and I'll tell the appraiser, hey, look, I need this thing to be at 1,000, you know, and this is why. These are the comps in the area, and I don't see anything over 1,000. I don't want to spend more than $1,000 per square foot, which will bring the price down to about 450,000. And then once I conduct the appraisal, then I'll go back to Lisa and I'll say, hey, Lisa, I just conducted an appraisal report. I just, you know, or if you don't hire an appraiser, maybe you just go on MLS, you take a look at the area, what's sold that's under 500 square feet and what it is sell for. And then I'll use that to at least begin a conversation to see if Lisa is motivated. Does that make sense? So that way I'm not wishy-washy and I'm not just talking about what I feel. I'm saying, hey, this is what I looked at when I found when I went online and looked at comparables. Number one. Number two, I had an appraisal done because I don't think anything in the Region Park is selling for 1,200 a square foot. And I'm worried that if we buy this for 1,200 a square foot, we're not gonna get the mortgage. You know, is your client willing to come down and willing to price at the appraisal amount? That's what I would lead with. And they could just, and here's what, if I was representing the seller on the other end, and especially since we determined there's a lot of profit and the seller is not motivated. If I was a seller at the other end, I would just say, well, how about we do this? Tell your buyer to bring me 135,000 in cash. And then that way they don't need to worry about the mortgage. And they don't have to worry about the appraisal, and they don't have to worry about the comparable. If I was representing the seller and we were motivated, and sorry, we weren't motivated, that's what my position would be. That's actually what my position is now with, because I have a lot of assignments on the table, and the ones that aren't motivated, I'm saying to the buyers or the buyer's agents, I understand your point, what you're saying makes sense. How about, because also another thing that the banks are very reluctant to do now in this market is the banks do not want to finance the seller's profit. You guys know what I mean by that?
So you're saying they don't want to approve for a mortgage to profit, like they don't want to approve a mortgage to give money to a buyer that will just profit the seller, and it's not actually
Exactly.
going anywhere else. Okay.
What a lot of banks will do, they will only mortgage for the buyer the original purchase price. So you guys can see how that could be a big problem. Especially if there's speculation, the prices don't make sense. The bank will say, well, we're not going to finance 529,000. We're only going to finance 394,000. You guys have to come up with the difference. Which means that new buyer has to come up with 130,000, 135,000 out of pocket, plus make their 20% deposit of another 80,000 to put 20% down, plus closing costs, plus land transfer, plus development charges. It's a very, very, even though there's a lot of profit, that seller needs to understand, and maybe Lisa does and she doesn't care, or maybe she doesn't. Right? So this is another thing when you're dealing with assignment sales, you have to know the type of conversations that you're having, and you have to gauge the kind of experience that person has. Because if banks are not going to finance the profit, then Lisa, nobody in their right mind is going to bring $130,000 plus $80,000 to buy an assignment sale, especially in this price point of under 700,000. Most likely this is the first time home buyer who's going to buy this. No savvy investor is going to put $200,000+ to buy a 1-bedroom condo in Region Park. Right? Because that's almost 1/3 of the purchase price. Does that make sense?
Mike, I have a question about the list price
Okay.
for assignment sales. How is that determined?
Oh, you can just make up a number. The same way we determine prices over the last circus of stuff. Now, sometimes the way people determine prices, because if I'm representing a seller, I'm trying to maximize profit, right? So if I'm representing a seller, I want to maximize profit. I'll say, well, in Region Park today, if a new development is launching, which new developments are launching, the cheapest new development you can buy in Region Park is $1,500 a square foot. So I say resale is $1,000 a square foot. We're gonna price at $1,200 a square foot, because by the time those future buildings are built, whoever buys this at $529,000, they're gonna make money, right? Because everything else is starting at $1,500 per square foot. So by the time those are completed in 3 years, this is gonna look like a steal.
Okay.
Right, so there's a bit of speculation with a little bit of wisdom, but the bottom line is if the bank says we are not financing profit, then this entire train of thinking is done. Right, so I mean, but they also bought it for close to $1,000 per square foot. And I'm guessing there is no parking or locker, right? So there is no parking, there is no locker. So they paid almost market value for this 3 years ago. Maybe they even paid above market value when they bought it 3-4 years ago. Right? So they're looking to get their money, get their profit out. And, you know, so they might be looking at, but when it comes to banks don't care about new construction because new construction is not real to a bank at least. So the bank only cares about what is happening in the last 60 days, what has sold, you know, and that's the flaw of our system is we look at past comparables, only past comparables over the last 60 days to determine what prices and what values are. But that's a good question as well. Okay, so let's move forward. Now this one it screams right there, motivated seller, right? So you know what it is. Now this is what I would do with a motivated seller as well. I would price it just above enough. So the original purchase was 502,000. They're asking for 524,000. So they're asking for enough to really just cover commissions. Does that make sense? So I mean, 22,000 is probably the total commissions that will be paid between Nicholas and the other co-op in realtor. This is district. This is in New Oakville, around Dundas and Trafalgar area. But as you can see, there really isn't much profit here.
Tell me about the machine.
Sorry, Shiki, did you
That's a
say?
bit. No, sorry.
Okay, I thought you wanted to add something. So yeah, so as you can see, but hey, it comes with parking, it comes with locker, it's brand new. But this person is occupancy, they still have a little bit of time, right? October 2023. So they're motivated now. So what that tells, and they're posting this 10 months early. So what that tells me is most likely they don't want to pay the next deposit that's due. Because I wouldn't post this early if occupancy is in October. But there's probably another payment because they've only paid 83,000. So they probably owe another 25,000 to the builder and they don't want to pay the 25,000. But again, the only way to really know all of this, because I'm just really speculating, is to call Nicholas, have a conversation with them, see how serious their clients are about selling, and if they understand, and if Nicholas has ever worked with assignments before. Anybody want to add anything to this? I mean, this one's pretty straightforward. There's no profit, and there's clearly motivation. Okay, so last one. You guys are pretty much getting a hang of this. So this one is a distressed sell. I don't know what that means, distressed sell. Downtown Toronto, looking for builder price plus commission. Just want to help them out. Occupancy next week, need a quick mover. Fantastic PDI, blah, 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 blah. Now, and this more or less is the same story. Now, in this group, I have seen every single day at least 3 of these. So if you can see when I took the screenshot, this was a day ago before the training was created. This was a day ago before the training was created. This was 12 hours before the training was created. And this was 5 days before the training was created. So every single one of these are very, very new, right? And every single day there is more and more and more inventory. If I log onto the group right now, I'll probably see 5 new ones that just popped up. Now, with that amount of inventory hitting the market, not only in resale, but with that amount of inventory hitting the market also with assignment sales, it's going to be very, very challenging for anybody looking to move an assignment with big profits to be able to do so in this market, especially if you bought a condo or a freehold in the last 2 years, which was the peak of the market. That doesn't mean that there's no hope for you, because if you bought it 2 years ago, hopefully your closing is not till 2024, 2025, 2026, because at least it gives you time for this market to kind of go through its cycle, and you don't have to be in a rush to try to get mortgages at 8%, 10%. So it's the timing of it doesn't help with the inventory that we're going to see in resale in the spring, and with the inventory we're now seeing on assignments, and especially if people bought these assignments with a lot of speculation, which I'll say about 85% of us of pre-construction is based on speculation as well. So there's a very small number that actually have good fundamentals, good merit, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next little while. Anybody have something to say or comment on the cases before we move on? Okay, moving on. So the most important question, even if somebody comes and says to me, hey, I can, if I'm representing the sellers in this, and a real estate agent calls me and says, hey, my clients are qualified, yada, 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 they want this, they're willing to do this. My number one question is always, what is the likelihood that they can close? Because when you buy an assignment sale, you're not closing and getting a mortgage today. You're probably getting a mortgage in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. The example that I showed earlier, the occupancy was October 2023. So that means you're not getting a mortgage till the end of the year. So it's very risky to assign something so early and then have a closing so long away, because so many things can change even in the buyer's life. So typically, if you're doing assignment sales, always try to do it very, very close to occupancy. That way, not much can change. I've seen assignment sales, especially in the last few months, that when we bought it, I did 2 assignment sales in a building, the exact same products. One occupancy was June 2022. Another occupancy was September 2022. And that little 3-month difference, the price moved by 70,000. The price came down by 70,000. And then the people who bought second, they had to come out of pocket to cover that difference, or else they couldn't get a mortgage. So it's very risky to assign very early, because the markets could change a lot. Obviously, it could change and go up as well. But in the market, in terms of what we're looking at, we know interest rates will be going up by the end of this month again, and most likely interest rates will be going up again next month by the end of the month as well. So important questions that you want to ask if you're representing sellers of assignments, because there's a good chance you guys will get a lot of inventory and a lot of inquiries from investors or people that have speculated, and they want to get rid of these. Everybody wants cash. Cash is king right now, right? So everybody wants cash in hand. So number one thing I'll ask is, do they have a mortgage pre-approval in hand? And preferred, that mortgage pre-approval is with BMO Bank or RBC Bank. The reason why I'm saying BMO Bank and RBC Bank is because they can do a rate hold for up 24 months to 36 months. Okay, so let me repeat that. BMO and RBC can hold the rate for 24 to 36 months. So if anything changes that's drastic, it's not going to be detrimental. Second thing, I want as much of my profit upfront as possible. The third thing, I want to make sure I'm working with experienced realtors, lawyers, and lenders when it comes to assignments. Because at the end of the day, if you sell something, if you're representing the seller and who is the assignor, and they sell to the assignee, but the assignee can't get funding from the lender for whatever reason, the builder is going to sue you, the seller, not the assignee, the buyer. Because the seller is on a contract with the builder, not the buyer being on a contract with the builder. Does that make sense? That's a very important note. That's like one of those like light bulbs should light up on top of your head type of moments. Because if you're assigning something and the deal falls apart, the builder is not suing the assignee, the builder is suing the seller. The seller can then obviously turn around and sue the buyer, and the buyer has they have no action they can take against the lender. Because the lender can advance the mortgage and then change their mind, a week before closing date, if the market changes. I mean, I've seen that happen in this season because the market's just changed so much and so fast.
A question about that. So
Okay.
is there any document that's signed between the assignee and the vendor or the builder, or is it just the
No.
assignee?
So the assignee and the assignor have a contract. And once that's executed, it's sent to the builder to review. And then the builder will consent to it. So all the builder will do is consent to it or deny it. Now the builder, before they consent to it, usually they say, okay, submit a mortgage pre-approval. That way we make sure that this person, we've done some due diligence on them, but there's no real contract between the assignee and the builder. That's a very good question. So the builder can't turn around and sue the assignee. Now, keep in mind, when you're doing an assignment, it's the same thing as buying a pre-construction. So the closing costs are going to look very different from what. Yeah, so the closing costs when you're buying an assignment sale is going to look very similar to the closing costs when you're buying a pre-construction, because it's just, essentially it's the same thing. So you're going to be responsible for the land transfer tax, development charges, assignment fee. Depending on the profit, I like the seller to always pay the assignment fee. HST, if it's not your primary residence, if you're renting this out, if this is an investor, they have to pay HST on top of all of these, and then they can file for a rebate through the federal government. But they're going to have to be out of pocket for the HST, and that could be anywhere from $18,000 to $30,000. Development charges in Toronto are now an average of $60,000. Usually we like to put a cap on the development charges. I like to see 10 to 15,000 for 1 bedrooms and nothing more than 25,000 for 2 bedrooms plus. Tarion enrollment, Tarion is the warranty program. That is changing, but for now, at least Tarion is a warranty program to protect the deposits of the purchasers in case the builder goes bankrupt. So you have to opt into that, and that's probably like $1,000. Parks and levies, a few $1,000. Utility meter setup, this could be as high as $5,000. But this is why when you buy pre-construction, you send it to a lawyer. If it's a condo, you have a 10-day cool-off period. Send this to a lawyer, let a lawyer review, and a lawyer will put a cap on all of these line items. If you're buying pre-construction freehold, it is a firm deal on the date of signing. So very, very different from buying pre-construction condos. If you're buying pre-construction freehold, it is a firm deal on the date of signing, so you don't have the chance to have a lawyer review and put these things in because you're essentially already firm. Any questions on the closing costs and who's responsible? Now, another thing that is fairly new that I didn't mention, and you have to consult with a tax professional, and that's why I didn't put it on here. If you sell your assignment for a profit, you're responsible for the HST difference. So the government will send you a letter after an audit is performed, because they're going to want to collect their HST, and they're going to want to collect capital gains. If you're lucky, only capital gains. But now there's a new proposal that I'm hearing about that they might come after it as full income, which just increases the taxes, which just makes your motivation to want to assign a contract not even feasible. Because if I'm going to make $100,000 profit and I'm going to pay $20,000 to realtors for commissions, I'm left with $80,000. Then I'm going to pay $20,000 for capital gains. Then I'm paying another $20,000 for HST. That means I did all of this work to make a $40,000 profit. So my $100,000 profit just drastically shrunk to $40,000. So the incentive to even want to assign is just being taken away because the profit margins are just not as large as they were. A lot of them today, if you're buying new construction today, downtown Toronto, you're paying $1,600 a square foot, up to $2,000 a square foot. So by the time those are completed plus closing costs, there is zero profit to be made. So it's assignments have become pre-construction. A lot of it has become a speculation game. So just be very aware of that when you go out in the market and you're talking to your clients and introducing them to opportunities as well. And that's why we try to vet as much as possible to make sure that what we're looking at has sound mind, good fundamentals, and people are not going to lose their shirts over it as well. Worst case scenarios, we discussed that with the article of Paradise Development. The appraisals come in low, and I think we kind of discussed about a lot of these things. Unable to assign or close, unable to get an extension from the builder, unable to get a mutual release. Your last option is really to just walk away from your deposit. If you bought a pre-construction, or you're not able to assign, you're not able to close, the builder won't get you an extension, you have no mutual release, there's no alternative to add financing or get another lender on it. Your last choice really is you walk away from your deposit, and that's the nature of investments. That's the nature of speculating. It's no different from if you put $100,000 in the stock market, there's a good chance you could lose it all. Same thing with real estate, especially when you're speculating. Any questions on this? Okay, so remember, what you're always looking for is motivation, motivation, motivation. Think of the 3 M's. Is there profit to be made? And seek to work with experienced people. I can't stress how important that is when you're working with assignments. It's a very niche and specialized area. Obviously, reach out to us if you do have clients that have these kind of products that are looking to take advantage and go to work. They're looking to take advantage and maybe offload it. Let us know, because there are a lot of things, especially in a market like this, that you want to make sure are in place. Lastly, we have a Next One training on January 26th and January 27th. It's not a 2-day event. I believe you just have to pick one or the other. I'm going to bring Natasha on. And Natasha, if you're still here, if maybe you can maybe how long the training is, and I'm guessing it's all online as well. And then we'll wrap up and let you guys get back to
Yeah.
it.
So, you can pick one or the other, or if you come to the first one and you're feeling like I don't fully got it, then you can come to the next one. The training, I would allot 2 hours for it just in case. So consider making space for 11 to 1. This training is mandatory because we want to get everyone who is doing deals and, preparing paperwork, all of that onboarded into the Next One system. If you aren't familiar or have kind of been out of the loop a little bit, Next One is a paperless digital system that we would use in exchange for something like web forms. And what it does is allow us, you guys will you can manage your database in there. You can move your client from database directly into the paperwork. You can also use it for e-signatures. And then it's like with a click of a button, you just send that paperwork directly to Julia. So that whole paperwork system, once we get into this, onboarded, trained, and get the hang of it, you'll see that paperwork's going to take you about anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes or so. So we are asking that everyone make the time to be able to attend one of these 2 training sessions. And I will be sending you out an email to get confirmation of what day you plan to attend. And then you'll get an email from Next One directly with the link on their training next week. And then of course, Julia and I will both be in that training. So afterwards we can support you guys through the process of using the system. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. So guys, as I mentioned as well, this is just when you look at last year, last year was a story of 2 halves. The first half of the year last year was probably, the most amazing season I've ever seen across real estate in terms of number of transactions done across the entire industry, sales. A lot of people, hit record marks for commissions made as well. And then the second half of the year was just, slow. People were skeptical. People weren't unsure. People wanted to kind of wait it out, see what happens. And that's going to be more or less the story, at least for the first quarter of this year. I believe it's going to be a little bit slow. And I hope that by the end of the year, once, the government has their handle on inflation, we can see, normal activity start to pick back up. But, go out there, still you put yourselves out there with your marketings, go out there with confidence as well. People are looking for individuals right now that, they want to lock arms with probably for the next 3 to 5 years. Those of you that stand out today in this kind of market, instead of burying your heads in the sand to say, oh, you know what, rates are high, everything's expensive, no one's buying, no one's doing this. That's kind of the general consensus across the industry with a lot of realtors. And I believe a lot of those realtors are going to be out of the industry in the next 12 months. So for those of you that want to be here, build a long-lasting career, this is the time to really lock in onto something. It doesn't have to be assignments. You can focus on leases, you can focus on resale, you can focus on just your area or your community, or maybe stuff that's happening around your area with infrastructure. See the types of pre-constructions that are going on. If there's builder inventory available, usually builder inventory, there's really good terms that are accessible. So I would explore as many options, make yourselves an expert, make yourself known, and make yourself stand out. So thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. And we will see you and talk to you soon. If you have any questions, reach out to me personally, and we will schedule something. Other than that, have a good day, everyone. Oh, anybody have any questions before I let everyone go? Any questions? No, everyone's good? Okay. All right, guys.
Thanks,
have a good
Mike.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Mike.
Take care.
Thank you, Mike. Bye.
Thank you.